Oh, I think that's. Oh, we got more coming. All right, got it. Okay, I'm going to try and share my screen. A lot of times I shut you guys off every time I do this. So let's see if we can get there without killing myself. There we go. So I got a bunch of good pictures. Linda, I'm glad you're here because I brought one picture back that's yours that's going to be at the end. I don't remember if I had something in the middle, but I brought back an old picture from you that I kind of enhanced a little bit. And I want to talk about that when we go through that process.
Okey-doke.
So I want to welcome everybody to Judge's Corner. I guess I should say that first. And I think we have a couple of new people I don't think I've seen on here before, so that's good. We got a good group today, so that's good. I don't see any of the other judges from past, but that's okay. They might join in. Sometimes they join in, have some comments as well. Okay, so the first image I got is this one. Let me go through it real quick. The photo was titled Future Fighter Pilots, and it was taken during Aviation Nation, Nellis Air Force Base. It doesn't have the category. If somebody's here and they want to say anything about it that took the picture, please feel free. I don't see the category.
Photojournalism.
This was in photojournalism. I think that's a good choice. That's actually another thing I wanted to say is we're going to talk a little bit about categories and stuff because I had a couple of questions on categories from different people, and we have somebody that submitted something to talk about categories. So I'm going to talk about categories a little bit with each image as well. So thank you, Jack. I'm glad you said that. This was during November's electronic competition. The judges' comments were the sky was too blue. Actually, that's the only thing I have. I'm interested in your thoughts about the photo. Okay, so yeah, the sky was too blue. So yeah, it maybe you didn't enhance it a little bit, although it looks like you might have just because around the hair, it looks like it's changed a little bit. But truly, I understand this could just simply be a polarizing filter that maybe enhanced the blues a little bit. But usually in a photojournalism category, you're not supposed to enhance anything. You know, a little bit of dodging and burning. And I know we are all so digital aged these days that we want a little more vibrance, mostly because that's how our phones look. When you turn a raw image into a JPEG, it automatically adds contrast and a little bit of saturation and a little bit of vibrancy as far as the colors go with that contrast. So that's something that normally happens, but I kind of agree with the judges. This looks a little bit brighter, a little bit, maybe too much contrast added. But as far as the story, I love the story. The title works with the story. And I think this is a great category being in the photojournalism, describing what's going on, even though you can see it because the story is good without the title. Would anybody else like to say anything about it?
I think what also was mentioned was it's a really tough time of day to take a picture like this with it being such bright sun and getting the reflection off of the canopy of the plane. And yet at the same time, since this is in photojournalism, you're not in control of that. It does tell a great story. So that is a minor thing to not be worrying about when you're capturing the image.
Right, correct. But no, I like the setup. I like the layout. It was done very nicely. Okay, so let's move to our next picture. Let's see. So the next picture is pink. All right. I'm not clicking through the pictures for some reason. There we go. That helps. Okay, so this was entered. This one was more talked about the category versus judging it or how it was judged. It does say I'm primarily a nature landscape photographer, but when I've traveled to taking a lot of pictures of big cities, I'm just kind of going quick. They aren't photojournalism as I really. I remember judging this one, by the way, and I really liked how there's different pictures in every window and they're all reflections. So it wasn't something that was added. It was something that actually reflect from, I'm guessing, the building that you were actually in. I thought it'd been kind of fun if you took one and somewhere you could see yourself in one of those little windows taking a picture. I thought that would have been kind of cool. So this was, I resubmitted the image, an electronic image in November, in the November category. It says November category. Still feeling unsure of my category selections. Submitted October. Remember the categories, images manipulated. So, oh, this was in creative. That's what it was. So this was originally entered in creative. And I think I'm the one that said I didn't think it had enough creativity to be in that category. So let's step away from Nevada Camera Club for a minute and talk about like maybe some of the PSA competitions. PSA competitions generally have two categories sometimes, which is color and monochrome. So obviously you would have to put this in a color, although in Nevada Camera Club, this would kind of fit in a monochrome category, but it may get kicked out in PSA. They're a little more strict on how they do things. But being in a color category is just going to lump in with everything else that's color. I think that's one thing that's fun and exciting about Nevada Camera Club, having all the different categories. And sometimes I feel the judges are very lenient about things that are in a category that don't necessarily, they should be in another category more so. I'm going to go way out of the box and say, if this was in a portrait category, it should score really bad because it's in the wrong category, clearly. Although also with Nevada Camera Club, there's a lot of things that will fit in 3 or 4 categories. And sometimes just trying to choose the right category or the correct category when there's no real correct answer is going to be dependent on which judges are judging at that particular night, or which 3 get called out of the 5 judging. So creative in Nevada Camera Club is something that's, manipulation is usually overdone or exaggerated a lot, because that's kind of how most of the people perceive creative, is by doing something really crazy out of the box. And where this is creative, but it's more of a creative mindset, because you did a great job by seeing this, because there's so many people that would have looked out that window and not even seen this to be able to shoot this picture. So I think it was creative from a photographer's standpoint or from a viewer's viewpoint, but not necessarily creative enough to be in a creative category that's, competing against or amongst, things that were digitally manipulated, or, maybe crazy filters on the front of the lens. And that's kind of what I meant when I said I didn't think it truly fit the creative category, even though the image was very creative. But again, we have this would be great, I think, in a documentary. I mean, I think this would score really high in a documentary, because you're documenting 2 buildings, the building here, the reflections in the window, which is the building being reflected. And that's a incredibly creative view to document a building this way. So there's a bunch of different mindsets that are set there, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't score, higher with different judges in that same category. But this could be a documentary. It could kind of be in photojournalism that tells a little bit of a story of the 2 buildings, because I think the architecture on one side is different from the architecture for the building that it's on, the reflected building. I think it would, you always have that fallback of the unclassified to, if you don't know where to put it, throw it in unclassified. Believe me, I've done it a million times, just trying to enter some weeks when I'm at the, last 5 minutes of trying to get something in, and I just have to grab something and pick it. So that definitely happens. But lots of kudos for seeing this in the first place. And I think that's a big plus and a big part of the scoring process right there. would anybody else like to talk about this now that I can't hardly breathe?
I have a question.
Yes.
If you put it in documentary or photojournalism, I think one of the comments that was mentioned when this was judged was that the image would be helped by straightening it up because you have it a little bit skewed. Would that be permissible with our definition in either photojournalism or documentary?
It should not, no.
Okay.
So now there's also two sides to this that could be argued, because this would be a lot of adjusting because it's kind of skewed and it's at an angle.
Right.
So you're having to do a lot to get it straight, versus maybe trying to buy the room 3 doors down and shoot again to be straight on, correct?
Correct.
But now there's lenses. So if this is let's say this is the camera, there are lenses that are called tilt shift lenses that move up and down. And it kind of makes your camera work as like a 4x5, like a sheet film camera, 4x5, a 5x7 or 8x10, where that front lens can move up and down, go sideways, or the lens can tilt back and forth. The reason for those lenses is to make buildings look straight. So if you shot a building and you had to point your camera, if you're pointing straight like this and you point your camera up, buildings tend to go in, or if you're pointing down, they kind of go out. But if you shoot a building like this and you put it into a skew that straightens the building for a documentary, I don't feel that is a problem. Because all you're doing is straighten the building to look like it looks exactly in the image. As long as you're not changing the color, or you're stretching the building out to fill the frame, or you're trying to squish the building down a little bit, which I think would be a little bit different. Again, going back to this one, to straighten it, I think would be okay, but this one needs a little bit more work where you're straightening it, and probably at the end of the day, we'll all know now because I've talked about it, but if he would have done it before he entered, it probably wouldn't have been a problem. And I don't think, I think you're just trying to straighten your lines. So it's not like you're manipulating the image to look different than how you saw it. And that's the whole point of documentary and photojournalism, is everything's supposed to look how you saw it. So if you're not changing any of the images in the mirror, in the windows, or you're not taking things in and out like the railing that's down there, if you don't take that out, then I think that should be permissible in a documentary or photojournalism. Does that kind of answer the question? Even though I'm talking about two sides of the story, I guess. The rule.
Answered my question.
Go ahead, Mary.
What would you think of taking out that railing and just having the 12 images in the frame?
I think it would be good, because I don't think the railing, well, it's not bad. The railing is not bad. Actually, the railing is straight, which is a good part of the image. As far as being conformed, we're talking about straight buildings. The railing is really pretty straight. It's pretty straight across. It's kind of centered. If I could straighten everything else to fit, I think that'd be great with the railing. If you were just going to crop it, I would crop it right above the railing. Yes, and I think that would help. I still think this image would be a lot stronger if everything was straight and uniform.
Agreed.
I agree also. It's a nice image. But on the subject of categories, one thing I have trouble with is if I have a city scene or an urban scene, there's no category for city scenes, urban scenes, etc. So it's a real struggle trying to find a category to put them in. And my suggestion would be to perhaps institute a city scene or urban landscape category that would take care of a lot of struggling to find categories for photos.
So where would you put one of your normal landscape scenes? What category would you put that in?
Well, landscape, there's nature landscapes and there's urban landscapes. like photographs of buildings or graffiti or street scenes or street photography.
Right.
And those are I put, they may be photojournalism, they may be documentary, but like you, if I can't figure it out, I'd put them in unclassified.
Okay. Well, kind of what I was getting at is you see a lot of landscapes. Of course, you couldn't put a city scene in nature. That's not going to work. But we see a lot of landscapes in pictorial. And I think city scenes work good in pictorial as well. Now, there's still going to be judges because, you know, one thing about Nevada Camel Club is we're very nature, flower, animal oriented. So a lot of things like portraits and people pictures don't get judged as well. The same as you're talking about city scenes don't always get judged as well as those other items. And I know that I've been in the club for, I can't even remember, 30 years. So I see that. And I see that a lot compared to other clubs that I've judged for who judge completely different than we do, you know, whether it's categories or what they like. And that's just, you know, that's just the nature of the group, really. That's why it's always good for us to try and get new judges. I know we haven't done that in a few years just because of all the stuff going on, but I generally, or we have other people that generally will try and do like a judge's class to get new people to judge. Or, you know, we used to have rules or recommendations, rules or classifications for judging to be a judge. And some of those things have gone away. Just, you know, it's 1 year you got a really active group, 1 year you don't have an active group. And I'm sorry, I'm getting like way off track. But we have a lot of categories, and I think sometimes they fit in the category. And again, that's going to be dependent on who's judging that night, whether it's going to do a little bit better or a little bit worse. But yes, I think you have, well, leaving unclassified out of it, I think you have pictorial or documentary. As long as you're not doing a lot of changes to that urban scene, you know, documentary is a good place for urban landscapes, or even what did you call it? Graffiti walls and stuff like that.
Actually, I like Nevada Camera Club's judging system of having 3 judges.
Yes.
I've been in camera clubs where they just have 1 judge.
Yes.
And the 1 judge will go on and on and on and on. And but with 3 judges, you have real short, pithy comments, and it keeps it interesting. I really like this judging format.
Yes, I do as well. And like I said, I've judged for some other camera clubs in California and some in Arizona and some in Florida. Ed and I have judged for some other camera clubs in Florida. So I've seen a lot of different changes and a lot of different ways things are done. So I like our system a whole lot better than most anybody else.
Jerome, have we thought about creating a category called architecture, where it's something like this would work? And I know that there's been several photos or images I've seen that I think architecture category, those images would fit. And I consider that to be more man-made. You're taking photos of man-made items, you know, like statues and things like that. Would that fit in that category?
Yes, I think absolutely it could. I mean, especially if you're calling it architecture, you know, anything building wise or man-made, built a dam or bridges. I think they would all fit in a category like that. You know, there's been discussions over the years of several different types of categories being added. And once again, I mean, we already have a pretty diverse category list, and you know, there's been things like digital manipulation, which everybody's digital now. This kind of happened in between the film and digital time going on, but it's like everything's digital now. So it's like almost nothing is not digitally touched somehow. But there's also been things like maybe a phone category, which may or may not happen before anything else happens as far as a category. That's just my thoughts on it.
I agree. I hate to to pinhole some of these images, but when it comes to judging, you're being judged, this photo's being judged against something totally different. And then your score is less. But if something is similar, if you get similar photos across that one category, then I feel that judging should be more equal.
Right. Well, and yeah, what Stephen just said right now is we don't even get enough images to have, competition in some of the categories. And you don't want, it's not really beneficial to have one image in a category and somebody get a score in the ribbon, because part of the idea behind competition is to learn. And to learn, you have to get, so to say, beat once in a while. You can't just always be winner, 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 because then you don't really learn anything.
I agree.
And here's a point, and I'm not picking on anybody, but I've been trying to talk Holly. Holly was a judge for us, and she's a professional photographer. She's been out shooting weddings. She's shot magazine covers. She's shot a lot of stuff. But having Holly join is going to be interesting, only because we've had other people like that have joined, and they get beat up a couple times in competition and they just quit because they know too much. They're professional. They're getting paid for their stuff. And I had a little feeling when I was getting beat up the first time I joined as well, but I've always been, I like the process of learning. I still, to this day, I go watch other people anytime I can. If I get a chance to go see another photographer or a book signing or somebody doing a program, I try and go. Stephen and I, that's one reason I teach at PSA every year, is because I get to go to whatever I want as long as I'm not working, and I get to see other people. And I go see people and go, oh my God, that's horrible. Geez, Louise, how can he be teaching a class? But that's part of the learning process. There's millions of teachers that never make $1 million because they spend all their time dedicated to teaching people how to do stuff. And if anybody was at the program the other night, I'm not bloating here. I got photographer of the year, but I made it kind of a joke with Daphne, because I'm always helping Daphne. I'm always trying to teach her. I look at all her images. Obviously, I never judge Daphne or Steven or anybody that I work with a lot. As the judges know, I won't judge their images, but I'm always helping those people to be better. And I was making a joke because, man, every time I come home, I got 2 whites and a red sitting over there. And I think Daphne brought home 3 blues. And I'm like, good God, I'm getting beat up in my own household, so it's kind of a joke, but that's what I like to do. And there's a lot of people that will join and enter competition and expect to win everything right away. And they get beat up right away, and then they never come back. So sorry, I'm getting off on another rant and rave, but that goes back to, if we have more category, if we had more people joining, I could see having maybe a few more categories. But having more categories just to better benefit what's being entered, I don't think is necessarily a good answer to the competition process or the learning process.
And I think too, what we have to remember is one of the main criteria we have established is a photo's impact. And whether it's architecture, we've discussed the image that's in front of us right now, that it has a lot of impact because of the reflection that's there. So we have to look at it through that eye and try and figure out what category it will best demonstrate the impact to the audience.
Yes, agreed very much. And I'm glad you said that, because I also want to say there's a lot of images that sometimes come up and have great impact, but they don't just score 27s on impact solely alone because of either a category or a little issue. And sometimes I'm the bearer of that bad news, and sometimes it's another judge that's the bearer of that bad news. But again, that's why we have this process. And I think if you take it all in, believe me, I think I've grown more in photography through this club than any of the other clubs and outlets I've been involved in. And I've been involved in almost everything. I've talked at half the conventions across the US that are photo conventions. So I think our process is amazing.
Jerome,
Go ahead, Mary.
what a lot of our new members don't realize that at one point we had a high of 300 plus members, and we were doing competitions that were lasting into 11 and 12 o'clock at night. And we had the same conversations, whether we
Yes.
had 100 members or whether we had 300 members.
Yes.
And everybody seemed to fit into those same 13 categories that we have, and 14 if it's an outside competition. And they have worked over since 1979. So you can figure we're 45 years, going on 45 years.
Yeah.
That 44 years that we've been in business, so to speak, as a club. And
Yes.
Wow.
we're still here where a lot of the other clubs are long gone.
Right. Right. Yeah. And we've even outlasted some of the clubs in Las Vegas itself. So we've
Yes,
had,
we have.
we've actually had members that have joined, and for those reasons I've just told you, where they've quit, they've actually started their own clubs.
Yep.
And they're gone. They've faded away. So I think Sun City is still out there. I don't know if they're doing anything in person. I think they're still doing a couple online things, and then I think there's somebody that's still meeting at BNC Camera with their little club. But I heard they're getting like a handful of people literally at the meetings, and that's only hearsay. I don't know that for sure. Stephen, what did you say?
So there were two categories that nobody won a blue ribbon this year.
Oh, so Stephen said there's two categories all year long that nobody won a blue ribbon in. Can you tell me what those are?
Yeah.
Monochrome animals and pets and monochrome commercial.
Monochrome animals and pets and monochrome commercial got no blue ribbons this entire year.
I'm making a note.
Yeah, maybe something good to start entering to try and get that blue ribbon. But
Can I make a comment? Can I make a
Yes.
comment about the photograph we're looking at? Something
Absolutely.
that, I don't know if anybody else has seen it, but the railing, this is creative category, correct?
Yes.
The railing, the gold railing, if that is gold, it doesn't seem, that's where the picture was taken, but it's not in the reflections of the windows on the other side. So is it a third building? Do you follow what I mean? It doesn't seem to. It doesn't
Yes, I see
seem
what you're
to
saying.
fit.
This
It
could be
doesn't seem to
taken
fit.
maybe from a parking garage to the building over there, and another building's reflecting. Yes, I see that. And I don't think necessarily the photographer's in the building across, or in the building in the reflections, but I was kind of joking. It would be kind of fun if you could move over a couple rooms and
Oh, yeah.
have yourself in there. But yeah, that was kind of a fun comment, not a actual, thinking that that's what happened. I just think this is this was a great catch.
Well, and you can do some cutouts of people and paste them in those windows, and then you're in creative.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. So once again, go ahead.
This is Nick. I have one just thought on category. As a new member, I have also struggled with trying to find what category some of my images might fit into or do fit into. I think maybe some examples of those images that are borderline category-wise, that can fit in multiple categories. It might be nice to have some examples, because as you said, I'm learning today. I'm learning by being in a couple competitions, but it also is kind of frustrating to think I have to go through 6 months of competition to learn what category to put my image in. As you said, I'm not a new photographer. I'm new to the club, and I'm going to be penalized until I learn the club rules. And this is casual. I'm not upset about it, but an idea would be, it'd be nice to see those cityscapes and graffiti in what category they were in or had success in other people's images. Because that's what I was trying to do when I was trying to figure out what category to put something in.
So I have a program, I haven't done it in a couple of years, that is a Nevada Camera Club category entry program. I will pull that back out, but it's probably gonna be a couple months because this month I have the camera, what do I have? The Christmas card thing with Canon. And then I think in January, I'm gonna do composition again. We had, it was like 38 people in person for the category or for the composition beginners group. So I need to bring that back again because I was gonna do a part 2 with that. But let's say maybe around February, I will get back into doing a category program. How's that sound?
Excellent. That would be great.
Okay.
Jerome, another
One
thing we
thing-
probably need to do is just a new members program because we do have a number of new members.
Okay.
And just some of the nuts and bolts kind of things with regard to how to enter and a lot of the other day-to-day kinds of things. I've done a few of those. I know you've done them. Julie Chadburn's done them for us. And so that's something that we as an executive board probably need to get on the agenda for people. So
Okay. That
One-
sounds good to me.
Jerome, one thing that they could do is to go back through the newsletter publications that they have access to on the web. And all of the blue ribbon winners for that monthly competition are in there and
That's true.
identified with their categories. So they can look at the pictures that have won and you could look at the titles because the pictures are with their titles, but you could go back and look at their results and see what categories that they were in.
That's true. That's a good idea.
What's really helped me is the YouTube videos. Because that
Yeah.
really does get to the point as to where categories are and where photos, what type of photos are entered into those categories.
Yeah. So do you watch the online? Who was that? That was asking a question. That was Nick.
No, that was Doreen.
No, Doreen was just talking, but I think Nick was the one asking
Oh.
or asking. I was talking
Yeah,
to.
I watched the last Judge's Corner on YouTube. I wasn't in it. I don't think I quite just was joining to look at it. I didn't realize at the time old newsletters would have it. I don't think I had gotten my first newsletter, or maybe I just got one and didn't put it all together. That every newsletter would have a series of images I could look at. So the tip to go look is great, but I think the tip to tell new members to go do that or to be able to do that is interesting.
Right. So that's what Mary was talking about, is going to look at the newsletters online. But what Doreen was talking about is watching. So you watch the YouTube videos from the Judge's Corner, but there's also YouTube videos from all the online competitions. So you have almost a couple years of those. And you can hear
I went
the
back
judges-
one competition and watched, but I didn't take the
Okay.
time to go deeper.
Yeah, I know that'd be
time,
time
yeah.
consuming. So, but that opportunity is there as well.
Yes, definitely. And it's useful.
Okay, cool. All right. So was there any other comments or questions? I know we had a lot of talk about this one, but before I switch to the next one. All right, let's go. Okay, so this was processed for monochrome documentary. This was in November electronic entry. The score was an 888, which I think was very good. I didn't get any of the comments were down here. I do believe, I kind of remember this one as well. And I believe one of the comments was about the sky. So on my computer, and it might just be mine, this line of light right here is, I don't see any definition. Where I see definition through all of this. And I think there was a comment about the light. I think this is a pretty nice image. Little bit dark compared to all the bright background. I don't think I scored it. I just remember seeing it. I do like this old car. I like the desert scene. I like the mountains. I do wish there was just a little bit more in the clouds. Other than that, I think it's a great image. I think technically it's got rule of thirds with the mountain line, bullet point rule of thirds with where the car sits, which is your main subject, and I kind of like it. Anybody else like to comment on this image.
What I would like to suggest to the photographer, if he or she is with us this evening, is to double check their sensor, because to me, on the left-hand side, it looks like we've got some goobers.
These three right here.
Those three right there.
Yep. And you know what? I just sent my camera into Canon to get cleaned because it was a mess. And I noticed that the last month when I entered. And then, of course, Steven yelled at me. Cool. So we're going to go to the next image. This received an 8, 8, and a 9. Comments were 2 photos in one competing with each other, November monthly electronic competition. So I do believe I gave this an 8. I kind of liked the layout. What the photographer that commented, he's saying there's too much division here, with this being one picture on this side and this being one picture on this side. I do kind of agree with that. Maybe if I didn't agree, it would have scored a little higher overall. A couple other things is I think this horizon line should be up here a little bit higher or a little bit lower. And I know it's a little bit hard with this image because here's your ground horizon, here's your mountain horizon, and you're kind of wanting this dark cloud in there because that adds a lot of drama to the image. I would like to see this maybe a little bit lighter. Again, here I kind of like the 2 subjects. If you're thinking just subjects, you've kind of got an angle, you know, the foreground to the background. I like the focus here, and there's focus back there. So you've got a lot of focused depth of field, which is good. But it's not overall exciting. It's a good image. It's just not very exciting. But probably to stand there was absolutely amazing because it looks like an amazing location. Would anybody else like to comment on this image?
I think the tree is too dark.
The tree's a little bit dark. I think especially since we have so much bright back here, and this mountain range back here is bright, that it draws a darker attention to the tree. I agree with that.
Well, I'm jealous of good depth of field. That's something I'm having difficulty with lately for some reason. So I think that's wonderful to get all that in focus.
Yeah, well, a lot of times to do something like this and that much distance, you have to be stopped way down to f/16 somewhere in there, and you probably need to focus out here, not on this tree, but they have a thing called hyperfocal, which I don't think we've talked about in years. But
The math hurts my head.
yeah, I know. Your focus, hyperfocal focusing is focusing about 1/3 into the image or 2/3 from the background, which should give you more depth of field focus wise throughout the image. So you wouldn't focus right here, you'd focus here, but it's hard for us to do that in our brain. When I used to do that, it was almost a calculation, and I wasn't looking to see what was in focus. It was a calculation of where I was focusing to get all that depth of field. But yes, I'm going to say at least an f/16 to be able to get that much distance, and probably on a tripod because it's probably going to be a pretty slow shutter speed, even in daylight, this daylight here with this cloud range. So I can't hold the camera as steady as I used to. Okay, we're moving on to the next image. Okay, this scored an 888. All of these scores are good scores, by the way. Comments were less background, get lower. So I gotta move my thing here if I can. Oop, oh, well, I lost it. Okay, so yeah, I think by getting lower, the judge is just wanting to see maybe some sky a little bit higher on that mountain range in the background. other than that, I think, I think you did a good job focusing on your subject, which is mostly this white bush, the white branch bush. And, having a little bit of greens and red bushes around, I think adds to it. It kind of draws you in a little bit. I do like to, you can definitely see that background is back there a long ways. Again, this looks like it's pretty much focused all the way from here to the bush. So good job on the focus. This one's kind of tough to say what you could do to be better. I know one judge says get a little bit lower, again, maybe just to see some sky in the background, but without being right there, it's hard to say move left, move right, move up, down, to see what is actually out there. I think this was handled very well for what it is. I like the bush. I like the design of the bush. I would think even maybe trying to come in a little bit closer and just have the bush bubble there, might be kind of interesting as well. So, but I think this is handled reasonably good. Anybody else like to say anything about this image?
I think this would be a fun image to play with in monochrome, to convert it to a monochrome image as well, because the main focus of the image is such a contrast with the background that if you moved it into monochrome, there might be a lot of impact there.
I would even crop it down some more, crop the top off, and have more focus on the white plant.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's kind of what I was saying. Yeah.
Well, I agree with the judge saying to get down lower. I think getting down lower and being at a 90-degree angle instead of taking the photo at 45 would make a difference. Then your tree would pop up, or the bush would be more visible, because it gets lost in all the background noise.
Yes, I can see that a little bit as well. Very good. All good comments. And I appreciate all the help. Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. So we have September entry. This scored an 899. Favorable comments, composition, depth of field, rule of thirds. So
It's all there. Yeah, the bokeh is good.
yeah. I like the framing here into the donkey. Donkey's in a good spot. Head's right in the center, but donkey's kind of in a rule of thirds. So he's in a good spot left and right with the framing. I like that you have changed your depth of field. So I will say this is the same photographer as the last two images, who had a lot of focus throughout, has now used his depth of field to have shallow focus just here on the donkey and having the good background blown out. So very well handled as far as that goes. I think good color. I like this. I'm going to say it's a very overcast day with this lighting, or the sun just went down. Either way, I like this nice soft lighting throughout the whole image.
I would try to light the eye up a little bit.
There's a little bitty catch light there. I know if you were a birder, you might have what's that thing on the top of the flash called? I can't think what they're called now. To advance your flash.
Something beam.
Beamer. Yeah, beamer. Yeah, so a beamer might throw a little bit more light in the eye, but it's there and I can see it. So I think very, very nicely handled. Now, I have had judges with some of my animal images not like that you can't see the feet. I don't see it as a problem, but I have had some judges say they don't like the feet being cut off. And I know when I shoot models, I really hate that, because you have so much control over that where you don't have as much control over an animal. To try. Could you step to the left, sir? I can't see your feet. So, and actually that's what would happen to me, is he would show me his butt just like that.
I think it's a wonderful image. I'd like to see a little more space to the left of its tail. Its tail seems to be right on the edge of the frame.
Yeah, his tail kind of flew out there a little bit. Cool. All right, I'm gonna move to the next one. Okay. So this scored an 887. This was in the Electronic Club Challenge, hot or cold. Comments were fits the category. Yep, I get a lot of those. Trust me, I get that comment a lot on my category images, and sometimes I'm just like, really? That's all you got for me? Really? Fits category? Of course, I get a lot of this doesn't fit the category too. So, category challenges are rough sometimes because you really have to think. I'm really bad about a lot of category challenges of trying to find an image I have to fit in there. This one actually looks like you might have gone out and tried to find something to fit the category, which is definitely more, beneficial and pleasing for the viewer and the judges themselves. But, I don't think this is crazy outstanding. I think what it scored, 887, I think that's a decent score. Keep in mind, 777 is an average image. So 887 is this scored above average. I don't think it's outstanding, and I truly don't know. I think this is an ice box. This might even be out at Nelson, Nevada, because I think they have something similar to this out here with their signs. But this might be an actual old ice box. You shot the side of it, so I don't know what could have made it stronger or better. I think it's a nice image. It's kind of fun. Coca-Cola logo is always kind of fun. This fits the category because it says ice cold. The red and the white work good together. Good tonal contrast in the reds because you have texture through there. Other than that, that's about all I've got. Anybody else like to comment on this ice cold image? Okay, we're going to move on. The next image is, okay, this is Coach. This was in the people category, scored a 26. Comments was generally liked, except the R on his shirt was partially cut off.
I think it's a good picture. I mean, the depth of field and the focus on his face and on his jersey, the front of his jersey is spot on. Even the intensity in his eyes, and about to blow the whistle for whatever reason.
Yeah. He looks like he's looking at, oh my God, team, what are you doing? I need to blow this whistle now.
Or where's my challenge flag?
I think this was handled exceptionally well. One of the hardest things that you've managed to do here is have this guy in a good spot where there's nothing really protruding into his head. And that's one thing that bothers me a lot about people pictures and especially portraits where you're supposed to have more control. There is a little bit of red jersey that's coming into his ear on the side, but there's such a good diffusion on that depth of field that it doesn't affect as much. And it's just a little section. So it's not something that goes all the way across his head. So having all those helmets also have leading lines into his face is great. Having the red leading lines into his face and choosing to put this in a square box, I think is a great addition to the image. So I think this was handled very well. I've shot a lot of sports. I've shot football, baseball, women's tennis, volleyball, NASCAR, IMSA racing, and I've done it all for paid positions. So being able to try and do this consistently every day you're out there, I know this struggle, and I think this was done very nice. Okay. So, oh, you know what? I'm sorry, because this is not a square. It's square. Is it square on my screen? Oh, you know what? I know what it is. When it printed out, it's not. So it is square. It's a square image. I just want to make sure. I have little cheater things so I can look and talk while I'm getting to the next one. And sometimes they don't print out right on my printer because I just do it real quick. Try not to waste a lot of ink. Okay, the next image is
Treats.
yes, this is treat. I have these two turned around, but right when I read the title, I knew I was wrong. So yeah, this is a choice. Club challenge is treats. The title is a choice. This scored a 25. Comments are it looked good enough to eat. I don't remember. I don't think I judged this, but I can actually pinpoint the judge that said that. Just because I know our judges. So on my screen, it looks a little bit dark. I don't know if it does on everybody's screen or if it came out that way during competition. I wasn't judging at all this month and I didn't have time. I think I was doing something else, so I didn't even have time to watch the competition. On my screen, it looks a little dark.
It looks a little dark on mine too. The
Okay.
white of the Snickers doesn't seem white enough.
Yeah, well, the Kit Kat's a red and it's really dark here. So Kit Kat and this yellow is really dark. These are my two candies, Kit Kat and that. Every once in a while, a Reese's when they're sitting on the table. So I look at these two a lot. I think this is a great image. I think it's a good idea. Treats. I have something similar, which is the Candy Kisses. I entered somewhere in one of these competitions. One thing with my Candy Kisses is I don't think there's a really good focal point. Same thing with this one. I don't think there's a really good focal point. So you're kind of looking at different things. Of course, I threw my comment in there about the colors because if I were going to judge this and I looked at it, these are the two things I'm going to look at because they're most common to me. You know, somebody else might be Reese's and Snickers. Somebody else might be Milky Way and Yorkshire. So I think if one of those was laying right, like this Reese's pack was right on top here in a good spot, because actually both these Reese's are pretty good spots. I think the layout was good, and I don't know if it was just thrown there or kind of straightened out a little bit, but I think having one of these packages right on top, so you saw the whole package, gives you a good focal point. It gives you a good subject out of the whole mix of subjects, because the overall picture is great. I think it just needed a strong focal point, which, you know, whether it's a Reese's or a Snickers or something that the whole package showed. Does that make sense? Maybe. Anybody?
I agree. To me, it's helter skelter. You know, I want more turning everything so that you can read it. You know, the mounds is hard to read unless you know it's a mounds. The one up in the left, you can't read at all that it's a mounds. I don't know. There's too much going on.
So yeah, and that's going to happen. You know, if the judges that judged that other image that said, "Hey, this looks like two pictures," you know, that same judge is probably going to look at this and say there's too much going on and score it a little bit lower.
I didn't judge it.
No. I know. Mary didn't judge it. I wasn't saying that. I was saying whoever judged the other one that talked about the two pictures. You know, this might have that same effect on that judge's brain where there's too many things to look at, so I can't judge it very good. So really the only thing I see wrong is it looks like it's a little bit dark. And again, that might just be my computer, but that's really the only wrong thing. To pick it up and give it more oomph, I think having one package as the biggest subject, or having a full wrapper, being able to see that gives it, making that the main subject of this whole mix, I think would add a lot to it.
And does it look like to you that there's a real warm light on this?
That might be what it is. Maybe it's a little bit of a warm tone that kind of changes, because the blue looks a little dark, the reds look a little bit orange. The Reese's looks pretty close. I think it's just a little bit dark, and the yellow looks pretty close. I think it's just a little bit dark. Sometimes things when they're darker, they look a little bit off color, and sometimes even when they're brighter, they look, a little bit faded. And Steven just said it might be a combination of the two. Cool. Anybody else? All right, we're moving right along. Okay, have one more image, and then we're going to have a series of images I'm going to talk about doing some adjustments to. Okay, so this one here is from Friday's judging. Of course, this is in October, so sorry. This was a master. Oh, wait, I think I have the wrong thing. That goes with this. This is on this other page. See, I had told you I had those two out of order earlier. This is the handoff, photojournalism. This scored a 25. Comments was okay, except it took a while to figure out which player he was handing off to. Well, if he's handing off to the guy in the white, that's why the coach is blowing the whistle on the other one. So, yeah, I can kind of see maybe Judge's point of view is it kind of looks like he's handing off to this guy, even though he's not. Obviously, he's handing off to this guy. His eyes are not looking at him. He's probably looking at this guy that's going to tackle him here in a minute. So football players aren't always looking where they're throwing the ball or where they're handing off the ball. And they do that for a reason, because this guy is trying to tackle him, is trying to watch where he's looking, trying to anticipate where that ball is going to go. So they will look the wrong way on purpose, even though he's, I think, watching this guy because he's going to get tackled. So it's a bummer that he's right here, because he really draws your attention away from these three guys, which is your whole picture. I know in football, you're not allowed to kneel down. You're not allowed to sit down. You have to be standing all the time. When you do kneel down, you will get in trouble. And you don't want to kneel down in case somebody's coming towards you in the sidelines, because if you get run over, they really hurt. I think this action right here, I like the three helmets. If I can get him out of my mind, I like the three helmets in this triangular pattern right here. That is, it adds a lot to the image. Triangles, diagonals, all that. Maybe if you didn't have the title there, that judge that commented, he doesn't know who's handing off, even though I see his hands here, he's going for the ball. It may even be a little bit more for him. So let's talk about categories for a minute, because I said I was going to talk about categories. Another great thing about Nevada Camera Club is we have all these categories. The only thing wrong with these categories is not all of us as photographers are diverse enough when we judge all the categories. So sometimes we're just judging, we're not judging this. I'm not a photojournalistic guy. The story doesn't really tell me anything. I'm not a sports guy or girl, so I don't get a lot of excitement out of this image. But when I look at this image, I like these three triangles. This guy here draws, away from me. That's how I'm scoring it. So again, having a lot of categories is great sometimes, and sometimes having a lot of categories can be a drawback. But I think also that we have more opportunity, because this still did what did the score? This scored a 25. Great score. If it didn't get the blue ribbon this time, you can always put it back in again and get another 25 points towards your photographer of the year, and maybe get a blue ribbon next time. So, by the way, that'll be things I talk about in the beginners group, how to win photographer of the year. But any comments from you guys on this image? Photojournalism, the handoff.
I love the expression on the quarterback's face.
Good expression. Good
Yeah.
expression. Good focus right there. Good focus. All the focus is right here, which is really nice. Actually, even the football. So he's got some good focus throughout. It's hard to tell if this is focus or if this is glare, which I think it's glare from the lens. I think the helmet here is pretty good. It might be a little bit of movement, but this is great focus. Great focus for this movement, which football is one of the harder sports to shoot. Baseball's a little bit easier depending on what you're getting. volleyball. I've seen some great volleyball pictures later. I don't know if anybody here is shooting the volleyball stuff, but volleyball is really hard to shoot because you're so close to them and they're jumping and moving and running so fast in and out far, left and right. So all good stuff. All good stuff. Okay, I'm going to move on. One more, unless anybody has another comment. Okay, I am going to an image that we talked about before. This was a Master Animals Pets. It received a 23. The title is Shelved Cat. I just talked about this before, and maybe next time I will take that architectural image. I'm going to jump back real quick. We'll take this and I'll try and do some adjustments to it. But with this shelved cat, one thing I talked about is I would like to see it cropped a little bit. Actually, was that on the comments? Did I read that? Shelved cat. Okay, need to zoom in on the subject and get rid of some of the surrounding space as it didn't contribute to the image. So yes, I agree with that. Maybe a little bit too much back here, maybe a little bit too much here. So what I did is I cropped it in a little bit like this. Now I went with this crop. I did the original aspect ratio. Thank you, Stephen. I did original aspect ratio. So keeping everything at the same aspect, I brought this kitty cat into this rule of thirds here, and actually his face will fall in a PowerPoint. So I think for the normal viewer, we kind of look at that as a PowerPoint. We like it. We like this C curve. Now this kind of follows the kitty, and I think adds a lot. Maybe for that other judge, there's still a little bit too much space here. So if I do one more crop and do it in an 8x10, of course, it's going to be a 10x8. I bring the kitty into that rule of thirds. I like his leg hanging down. We get rid of a lot of the bright rock, a little bit of top, some bright rock on both sides. I don't think cutting into the shelf hurts it. I'm going to go back for a minute. I think I was cut in there also. Yeah. So let's go back to the original. So having the shelf, you could do it right here, but I don't think cutting in the shelf hurts it. I think it kind of adds power into the image. So it gives it a little bit of substance as to, just like these are touching the top, this gives a little touch on the side and keeps you right in here. It's where you want to be. If I go one step further and I just do a dark vignette around it, now I think the kitty, especially with the white and his stripes, they really pop out. If I see this, I didn't see the stripes as much until I did this. And I was like, wow, those stripes really pop out when I darken that rock around him. If you didn't like this, because I do kind of like this shadow under here, I went ahead and darkened the shadow on the last one. And I think kitty really pops out of there. His leg really hangs down a lot more than it did before, just because the whites, away from that darker rock looks good. What does anybody think about that?
Love it.
Yeah, I like it too.
Okay.
Maybe monochrome.
Ooh, I didn't try that. Maybe we'll try that one for another time as well. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll try and put that.
Somebody commented on monochrome pets.
Yeah. So, hey, that is all I have for Judge's Corner this month. And I know, sorry, I missed a couple months. I'll try and pick them up. I definitely want to do some beginners groups. This month we have the Christmas card thing with Canon. So what we're going to do is you want to bring your camera to that, because we're going to set up little Christmas card stations so you can shoot pictures. And then we'll be able to print right from, I think you can print right from your card. We'll have some computers there just in case. But then we're going to actually get a print on some new paper from Canon and from new printers from Canon. And I think we have a little surprise. I think Canon is going to give away a printer at this event. And then I will try and get back to composition, because that was a good class for January. And then we'll see if I can do some beginners group and new member stuff for February for beginners group.
Thank you, Jerome.
You are very welcome. Thank you all for coming.
And
Yeah,
also,
thanks,
if you have time tomorrow can help us take down the annual print images and put up the juried exhibition down at the federal courthouse, help would be appreciated. 9 a.m., 333 South Las Vegas Boulevard. Got to have an ID to get into the lobby.
Don't bring cameras.
Yeah,
Oh,
don't bring cameras, but if you do, you might be able to get them in.
don't bring cameras. Don't bring your pocket knife or anything in your pockets. Just bring your keys in. Yeah.
Yep.
It's all done, all loaded in the car, ready to go up.
All right, perfect. Thank you
Right.
very much, guys.
Thanks again,
Bye-bye.
Jerome.
Thanks, Jerome.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Very
Cheryl.
educational. Thanks.